When I was growing up, I was never under chiropractic care.
Yeah.
I did a lot of intense sports.
Yeah.
Football, rugby, hard hitting, like just absolutely destroying my body. Chiropractic, my first intro to it was actually a TMJ, like a jaw issue.
Right.
And I was cheering at a Rider game. That could be
Rough Rider game.
Yeah. But my jaw
Locked
up.
Yeah.
This is the weirdest thing. So I went to a chiropractor, and first of all, I had no idea about chiropractic. So it was fix my jaw.
Yeah.
Don't fix the rest of my body. Don't look at the rest of it. Fix my jaw. And at the time, I was very closed minded about pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Right. So I left there not with the answers that I wanted. It seems that as I've realized that I didn't know everything, that I started learning more about health and the body and even life in general, that I've come more towards chiropractic. I've seen that more chiropractors are more growth oriented. I see more chiropractors in leadership courses, in men's groups.
Yep.
And overall, I feel like chiropractors are the leaders of health or functional health. Why is that? Why is chiropractic, which some consider still to this day frou-frou in the air?
Yes.
Like I talk with MDs and they're just like, some won't even look at you. But from a functional standpoint, it makes so much sense to me. Why the huge disconnect? So
that's a great question. And there's a lot of sub questions in there. There's all kinds. I was going to say, how long do we have?
We've had a hard stop.
So let's start, let's just go to the history of chiropractic that most people don't even know about. Okay. So the history of chiropractic, 1895, a gentleman named D.D. Palmer. He has the word would be janitor back then. They called him a janitor, but a custodian was working in his building, and he was a magnetic healer, right? So he had crystals, magnets. So he was a little bit, flu and out there. So the person who established chiropractic already had a reputation for being very eccentric and out there in his views, philosophies. Mm-hmm. But this janitor had lost his hearing. He had something, I can't remember exactly the story, but something had hit him on the head, hit him in the back of the head, and he had lost his hearing after the injury. Well, D.D. Palmer had noticed that he had this very large lump right at the base of the skull below his right ear. And he thought, well, that's weird. That shouldn't be there. It's not like the other side. Now, what possessed him to think that he should push on it as hard as he could? But he basically gave him the first adjustment. He pushed on that bone as hard as he could, crack, janitor's hearing came back. And he thought, wow, that's really cool. So the very first adjustment ever given had nothing to do with pain, right? Okay. And so right away, D.D. Palmer thought, well, if that bone can control hearing, what else could the bones or what else could the spine be involved in terms of functionality, healing, and so on and so forth? And so chiropractic was actually designed as a healing profession, not a pain profession. So those first chiropractors in the early 20s and 30s and 1940s were really much more interested. They were all trained to become holistic doctors, if you will, in a way. It was like, well, if we can keep that spine healthy, we can keep the nervous system flowing, basically brain to body communication and connection. Well, they got to be very, very, very popular. You had people that were lined up outside of clinics then. They would wait for hours to get adjusted by certain chiropractors because they believed that, keeping my spine healthy would keep me healthy and functioning. Mm-hmm. The same paradigm that I was grown up, with. And I will say I had a pretty darn healthy childhood. Was it because of chiropractic, the movement? Was it because my dad was into, organic, healthy foods, trying to make us eat properly? Probably all of the above. But that was the field. That was the mindset. That's what we believed in. And so at some point, there was the medical association didn't like what they were seeing. They were saying chiropractors were practicing medicine without a license. They don't have proper training. Let's crush them. Mm-hmm. And this actually happened. The American Medical Association in the 50s and 60s developed a committee on quackery. They called chiropractic quackery. And they put a lot of money in, and the specific goal was to sort of destroy chiropractic, right? And so they started putting out campaigns and billboards, and it was all about chiropractors being these snake oil salesmen, uneducated quacks that were really dangerous, and they were practicing medicine without a license. And the amount of money and effort that went in significantly tarnished chiropractors' like reputation and the profession as a whole. Now, the chiropractors stood up for themselves. They took the American Medical Association to court, and I believe it was in the 70s. They actually won and sued the American Medical Association for basically unjust harm that was put onto our profession. But you can't take back what was done. And since that time, we've always been the snake oil salesmen, the eccentric quacks. And so that tarnished, I think, chiropractic's reputation, and it's been really hard to come back from that. And then because of that, I think you have a portion of the profession that then gravitated and said, well, let's move into pain, because now we're not stepping on, the medical body's expertise, which was supposed to be health, taking care of patients. If we just focus on pain, well, let's face it, when you go see a doctor, if it's pain, it's either a prescription or physio type rehab, right? So they said, let's focus on pain because there's a huge market here for helping people with pain. And we know that as we adjust the spine and we move the bones, people's pain goes down or goes away. And so chiropractic then sort of divided itself, where you have a large part of the profession that focuses only on pain, and you still have a big portion of the profession that stayed true to the roots of being these healthcare holistic leaders, trying to not only get someone's posture to be better. Yes, I want your pain to go away, but ultimately, I want you to be the best version of yourself.
Right.
And so the profession kind of split from that point. And that's where I gravitated towards this type of chiropractic called chiropractic biophysics, because they said, well, let's prove in the science this mind-body connection. Let's prove that if we improve the spinal position, if we improve the mechanics and position of the spine, that we can measure these improvements, whether it's in pain, headaches, nervous system function, autonomic nervous system. So they're measuring all these different things and showing that, when we bring the spine back to normal, we're having a significant impact on health and the nervous system. And so it's above and beyond pain. And so, yes, it's still holistic, but it's the waters are muddied, if that makes sense. And that's in large part why chiropractic has never become mainstream, and why we've always, I guess, sort of rubbed medical doctors the wrong way. It goes back to, I guess, the history of chiropractic. And I think it's changing a lot now, especially as we're getting more research that is supporting what we're doing and establishing things. It's no longer considered quackery. You can show someone that, hey, look, this has been done in the research, peer reviewed. This is scientific. There's proof to show that what we're doing has good value.
Right. And here's the metrics.
Correct.
To back it up, which is huge part of it.